Hi BookTube, and welcome to a new video. This is Saturday, July the 1st, and therefore the optimal time for a review of my first 6 months of the year reading. And I'm going to give my reading stats, and then I'm going to give my top 5 reads of the year so far. Mainly to I'm curious to see if they'll end up in the top 10 books of the year. You'll see that I've given 33 books 5 stars. And yet 28 of those I know already will not get into my top 10. It's only these 5, sort of guaranteed really. Obviously if I don't read anything good between now and the end of the year, then I will have to find another 5 books out of those other 28 to pad out the top 10. But anyway, okay, so let's start with this stat. So I've read 87 books in all in the first 6 months of the year, which is way up. It's my sort of largest number of books read in 6 months. Combination of mainly devoting more time to reading, really. Of those 87 books, 80 are fiction and 7 are non-fiction. Of the 80 fiction, that includes 1 short story collection, 1 graphic novel, and 10 poetry collections. So that's 12, so 68 novels or novellas. Of the 87 books, 59 were written by male writers, 28 by female, and of that 7 were LGBTQ+, and 7 were persons of colour or First Nation, either American or Canadian. And in terms of the geographical spread, 19 were British writers, 22 were American, and 39 were rest of the world. And that breaks down to 7 from Canada, 2 from Argentina, 1 from Colombia, 1 from Tunisia, 2 from Australia, 1 from Thailand, 1 from Vietnam, 1 from South Korea, and from Europe, 7 from France, 3 from Spain, 2 from Germany, and then 1 each from Switzerland, Holland, Ireland, Denmark, Sweden, Slovenia, Ukraine, Romania, and finally 2 from Poland. And in terms of my ratings, only 1 star this year, more of which are none. 2 stars I had 9 books, 3 stars I had 21 books, 4 stars I had 23 books, and 5 stars, as I've said, I had 33 books. And that 1 star was the new novel by Jaroslav Kalfar, an American writer of Czech descent. He was the guy who wrote The Spaceman of Bohemia as his debut, which I absolutely love. Been waiting quite a while for the follow-up, which is this. And it was a huge disappointment. I gave it 1 star. I would say that any of the books I mentioned specifically today, I will post links to my original reviews of them this year. So I'm not going to go into too much detail about the 5 sort of top reads, and the most disappointing read, which was the Kalfar. And another greatly disappointing one, although it did limp to 2 stars, was Jenny Erpenbeck's new novel Kairos, and which I gave 2 stars. Okay, so as to the top 5, not in any order. Fire Rush by Jacqueline Crooks, British writer of Jamaican descent, and this book is very much about the Jamaican British experience from the 70s onwards, and the importance of music to identity and cultural life. And what I liked about this book is it has many strings to its arrow. It is that sociological cultural study. The language is highly musical. Some of the images are just fantastically lyrical. And it has a pace and a rhythm, as I say, which matches the music that it's talking about. But also, it's a damn good story as well. So there's that. Romanian author Magda Corneci, translated by Sean Cotter. This is called Femme. And in a way, although she's mainly a poet, I think this is her only novel to date, she is the sort of female Romanian equivalent to the inestimable Mircea Cartarescu. And it's a book sort of in line with that. It's sort of very sort of metaphysical and contemplative. As I say in my review of it, it sort of propounds a worldview of sort of connectedness to the cosmos and everything, which is fundamentally goes against everything I feel and believe about the world. And yet this book just totally won me over, not to the argument, but just in how it presented its argument in such a fantastic way that I absolutely love this. Then we come to Michael Winkler's Grimmish. So this book ostensibly starts out as sort of biography of a punch-drunk boxer in the early decades of the 20th century, on tour in Australia, sort of having bouts where he's going just sucks up punishment for the purses, and becomes a bit of a freak show. But it's called Grimmish because it's asking the question, how much can we ever really know and understand another human being? And as the book proceeds, it sort of slides over really into the author. It's quite metafictional. The author sort of asking himself questions about his approach to some of the themes in the book, such as masculinity and competitiveness, and even religious questions as sacrifice and grace and things like that. It's just superb. I've seen it described as sort of weird and wonderful and out there. I can see why people say that. I didn't think it was at all. I thought it was very, very controlled, and sort of moved you on effortlessly through as it gradually shifts its line of attack on literature, on memoir, on what an author is, what an artist is. Wonderful. Amelie Smith, Danish author, translated by Jennifer Russell. This is called Threadripper. This book seems to be written with Mark Nash designed in mind. It's such a me book. It's sort of split up literally. Left-hand page is the sort of factual stuff of what's going on in the protagonist's life, having a big art commission from the Danish government and getting to grips with that. And on the right hand side is the sort of the research that feeds into that, but it's not dry academic research. It's much more sort of finding associations across things that normally you wouldn't make those connections. And the main central image is of weaving. The artistic commission she's got is going to involve a huge sort of weave piece of work. But she in the book she extrapolates it out to the nature of DNA and how that weaves us as people. So any single application of weaving, the fact that Jacquard's loom was the sort of precursor to the computer working, and that it sort of was a punch card system for weaving. And obviously the punch card system was an early technology towards the computer. So there's all these wonderful connections between what her artistic commission is and the research that feeds into it. I absolutely love this book. And finally, Anne Carson's Knox looks like a massive tome, but it isn't. It's quite a quick read. So you can see it's sort of concertinaed pages. So the undersides of each page are blank, and it's really an elegy for her dead brother as she's trying to come to terms and understand what death means. And there's lots of sort of interrogation of words, particularly Latin words, around death and mourning and things like that. And it's just wonderful. So those are my 5 books that I would hope at this stage, in one way I would hope that they get into my top 10 reads of the year, and another way I hope they don't. I hope they're displaced by what I've still yet to read in the second half of this year. Although having said that, because I've read a lot more than I've ever done at this stage, I now feel I have absolutely no excuse for not finishing 3 books that I've, been albatrosses around my neck that I've started and not finished. One of which is William H. Gass's The Tunnel, about halfway through. Another is Samuel Beckett's trilogy of Malloy, which I have read. Malone Dies, which I'm halfway through, and The Unnameable, which I haven't started yet. So I'm literally halfway through this. And James Joyce's Ulysses I also need to finish. So I've got to stop chasing the shiny bauble and actually, do my duty and get back to these 3 books and finish them between now and the end of the year. I'm determined to do that. And in terms of shiny baubles, the only book, new release I know that's coming out that I've ordered is Claudio Pinero's new book. I don't think I've got anything else on order. That's not to say I might not find out that there are new books by authors I like to come out in the second half of the year, but I'm not aware of them. So again, that should hopefully decrease the shiny bauble quotient. One book that I kind of have to read before the end of the year is Sally Rooney's Conversations with Friends, and I say I have to read it, and it's putatively will be a buddy read with Zena over at Beating Around the Books, but I don't think either of us are in a rush to get to this, because this, ostensibly this is not a Mark Nash read at all, but my latest finished piece of work is called Solipsistic Conversations with Close Friends, obviously drawing on the title of this, but I don't know the content of this book because I haven't read it, and I feel that now I'm sort of touting my book out for a publisher. I kind of need to know what's in here in case I'm asked about my title. Well, obviously I would confess to the fact that it's sort of interrogating the title of this. But to go further than that, I need to know what's in here. So, yeah, I kind of need to read this. I'm not looking forward to it. The other thing is, I've recently had a rash of a lot of metafictional fiction. I've read a lot of titles from Dalkey Archive. Also, I've come to realise that quite a few of the authors who are published by the same publisher as me, Corona Samizdat, are interested in the same themes as me, which are... they're not out and out metafiction. They're more sort of showing your workings, underlining the fictive nature of a book. It's not asking a reader to suspend their disbelief in order to enter the world of the book. It's saying, no, this book already will do that work for you by showing you how things are linked together, how we come by these things, how we come to write these things. So I've read a lot of those and a lot of the Dalkey Archive titles that I've read recently. And so that's on one side. On the other side, I've read books that are just tell stories and do nothing else, such as The Story of the Forest by Linda Grant. And that's never enough for me as a reader. I'm not interested in books that merely tell a story. I want language, I want metaphor, I want some formalism, some experimentation. I want big ideas or interesting ideas. So just telling a story, taking me through a plot, does not interest me in the slightest. So recently, those have been the two poles of what I'm reading. So I'm quite desperate for something that's actually going to sort of plough a furrow between those into not a new direction, but a different direction. And one of the books I feel very confident will do that is Solenoid by Mircea Cartarescu. However, I need to have a space for my head, because this is dense work. I read his book Blinding, so I'm aware of the approach of Cartarescu. So I need to have a headspace free to take on this book. Which means I need to sort of have finished all my own sort of writing. So I can't turn to this sort of as my next read, but I hope to get to it sooner rather than later, because I think it will sort of refresh my palate. It's got a bit jaded by the old metafictional stuff, of which I'm a fan to the extent that I write it as well. But also the kind of really disappointing books that tell a story, which I suspect this will be. But as I say, I have to read this anyway. Cool, there's a juxtaposition of books for you. Anyway, so that is my half-year review. Here's to the second half of the year. Thanks very much. Oh, by the way, I am asking you, dear viewers, dear subscribers, please hold my feet over the fire to finish by December The Tunnel, the Beckett trilogy, and James Joyce's Ulysses. So you've got to help me out and make me do it. Okay, thanks very much. Till next time.